Yeah, I mean, the thing is that you've had just such a very interesting life, and we were talking about stewardship beforehand, and talking about the people
Mm,
that come into our lives and about the stewardship and stuff. But kind of going to stories about kind of on this concept of stewardship and how you've had people come into your life and how you've helped shape them through just you giving. I mean, it's a pretty cool concept of that, because the thing is that as a small business owner, we have employees come into our lives, and when we
yeah.
do, we we have stewardship over these folks, and it's our job to make sure that we have an optimistic outlook and we inject positivity into their life. Because I don't want anybody that would ever work for me to go back and say, that was the worst job I've ever had in my entire life. That means
Yeah.
that I have failed in my stewardship. So talk to us a little bit about that.
Well, it's amazing to just hear your use of the word stewardship and as you use this word and relate it to me and some of the actions that I've taken in the jobs and the things that I've done in my life. I'm honored that you would bring that word up. I think that it's a powerful way to look at it now, the way you just described it, being mindful and aware that you have a conscious choice. You can make a decision to be a better steward, that you can invoke and invite that word into your life and live up to that. I think for me, unfortunately, growing up as a child, I didn't know that existed, and I was forced to look to the positive side because of the things that I found myself in. I'm not saying my story is any worse than any. I'm just saying, we all learn it. We all learn the same. A lot of us learn the same story, just in very different paths, and that's what helps the journey, and that's why the journey matters so much. I think I became a really great steward because I was a wounded kid. I'm the oldest. I was the oldest in my family, and ultimately a single parent family where drugs and negative energy were sort of rampant in the house. We didn't play music in the house from like the 70s. I didn't grow up listening to Elvis or any of my parents' favorite bands. I grew up listening to Frank Sinatra in the 30s and my grandmother's favorite music because my parents were out of the house for one reason or another. And all those experiences, I think, turned me into a people pleaser. And in a good way and a bad way, that now that I'm over it, I've identified it, and I now understand how to use that super skill of putting people before me helplessly, for seeking people to put in front of me. Literally is what I did for the first 20 years of my career, and I would never have done it I couldn't have done it any other way. I had no formal experience working in the industry that I wanted to be in, and I had no contacts in the industry that I wanted to be in. In the mid 90s, cable TV seemed to be booming. MTV was about 15 years old. CNN was just launched. Fox News was just launched. Fox News had a show called Hannity and Combs, which I loved watching both sides of the aisle talk about politics. In a weird way, it was like my entry into politics. I understood what politics meant because I understood that there was discord and conflict, and that was positive, as opposed to in the household where I was brought up in, where conflict and discord usually ended in going to bed or silence or some of the other, sort of negative experiences kids had. And to be honest, I never really thought of that, because Hannity and Combs is one of the first shows I got to work on in '98, and then it was my experience on Hannity and Combs that let me work on MTV News for a year, and then with MTV News, I brought in a couple of people for Choose or Lose. The MTV would cover the presidential campaign, so I got to cast and find the young newscasters that would represent this political conversation, and found some awesome people that stayed for years and continue to create content. And none of that was anything I had to offer other than I promise I can meet people, and I promise I'll try to find the right people, and I promise I'll go out and bring the right people back here so we have good, long, sustainable, creative relationships with people. But like that wasn't that wasn't necessarily what my job was supposed to be, but it's what it felt like it should be. And that's what I turned it into. And then in 99, MTV launched the talent development department. And I got to, with one very special man, Rod Asa, launch the talent development department, which created the Osbournes and Newlyweds and Punk and so many unscripted shows that gave power of the storytelling to the storyteller. In a lot of ways, predated social media and taught people how to be almost good storytellers. And look, you could be really good at being great at something, and you can be really good at being bad at something. Those are skill sets that I appreciate. You could be bad at the kitchen. You could be so bad at the kitchen that it's just fun to watch you be bad at the kitchen. There's so many shows we can talk about now, right?
Yeah,
where people are taking their fears and turning them into the thing that makes them,